I have a question about Harry Potter. Why is Neville Longbottom the true hero of Harry Potter? And even like the mythology is like, it could have been Neville, but it wasn't. Like, why not? He's a way better guy.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Young Geek versus Old Geek. Today's topic is a controversial one. What is the superior book series? Is it Harry Potter or is it Lord of the Rings?
I am Cody. I'm the Young Geek, and I'll be arguing for Harry Potter.
My name is Michael, and I'm the Old Geek, and I'm arguing for the superiority of the Lord of the Rings series.
James, I'll be your goofy host, and then Jen will be over there keeping time. And Michael, you won the Boing Boss, so we're going to have you go ahead and start with Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings is the superior trilogy, or superior novel series, because Harry Potter is not a trilogy. It is really goddamn long, is one problem with it. It's 7 books. One of them is over 800 pages. Another one is 700 pages. A couple of them are 600 pages. Get to your fucking point. Jesus, what are you doing? It's just too goddamn long. The other thing is the narrative is kind of all over the place. But Lord of the Rings, so the editing process was done well by Tolkien. He started writing it in 1937 because he was a professor at the time after the success of The Hobbit. He wrote all the way through till 1949. It was published. It was originally, he wanted it to be one single novel, and his publishers basically went, that's crazy. You can't do that. No one wants to read a novel that long. Apparently, if 60 years later, then someone was like, no, that's fine. So way shorter, way better. It inspired pretty much the whole genre of fantasy novels. It inspired the whole D&D craze. It's inspired all kinds of music, from Black Sabbath to Rush to Styx and a bunch of weird death metal bands I've never heard of. It's had an amazing breadth of impact on the whole world. What an elf is, what a dwarf is, all of those different things, what a dragon does. All of that mythology is why The Lord of the Rings is the superior series.
Harry Potter series, I feel like, is the superior novel series for many reasons. First of all, it was able to age with so many people and help those people come into their own age. Being able to grow up with the characters in the book and seeing them deal with trauma and loss and all these things, and having someone their age range to relate to that. It was also, I think, you pointed out, that there may be a lot of sections of some rambling, but I think that overall in the series, Rowling did a fantastic job of incorporating a very good amount of her ramblings into the actual plotline that she ended up developing. And from my experience and from what I've been able to draw from the books, just everything kind of made sense in the end. It also was, I feel, in its time, much more relatable to a larger population. Lord of the Rings earned a following and is, widely loved now, I think partly thanks to the movie series. But Harry Potter, developed its following from the book series and from the people that it was able to draw in from the start.
First question is, what do you think the cultural impact has been from your book series?
I think the largest cultural impact was just the fact that people, specifically around my age range, really honestly relate to each of these characters as they grew throughout the series. Rowling did a fantastic job writing as young adults and teenagers, them as they were dealing with everything from trauma to warring despotic governments, to, family issues, even growing into love and losing old friends, gaining new ones. It's something, all of these things are something that everyone goes through in their life. And a lot of us have to deal with a lot of these issues when we are young. And I don't feel like there are enough, cultural sensations like Harry Potter that deal with these issues doing its thing. There weren't as many out there that were dealing with those issues that were helping us young adults learn how to deal with these emotions. In my opinion, that's the largest impact.
To me, I think it's just the genre of fantasy coming into a more mainstream idea. I mean, in the 50s, the idea of someone being super into fantasy was kind of unheard of. So it really opened the door of, this is not only a viable genre of entertainment, it's a viable genre for books. And you think about, whatever the Jordan's Wheel of Time series, or even the Harry Potter series, or any of those, it really opened the door of that being a viable genre for people to really partake in, from it being like a weird, niche-y, like culty nerd thing, to something that had mainstream success, and took the idea of fantasy and brought it into a much broader audience. And I think that it really did open the door for almost all of the things that you're probably going to debate on this show. Almost all of them probably can be traced back in some way to Lord of the Rings really opening that up. It didn't invent the genre. It was one of the more first things to popularize it.
Lord of the Rings is significantly shorter than the Harry Potter series. And yet people still constantly complain about Tolkien rambling and putting in way too much description into a lot of things, which I totally agree with, which kind of takes away from
called literature.
But I think what it missed out on was relating to a larger portion of the population.
So you're saying you find it alienating, the whole thing that originated things probably like the Harry Potter series that probably would not have existed had this, because the whole fantasy genre was essentially opened up as a broad publishing and viable medium of books. So the one that made that happen, like, that one's not as good. So the characters were relatable. Tolkien invented the halflings or the hobbits in order to relate specifically to children. You can be a hero too. The whole thing is these weak, powerless people can be the people that vanquish evil, which sounds really familiar, doesn't it? It almost sounds like the idea is stolen from the Lord of the Rings. Like, the whole premise, created an entire mythology, make it more real, not only for him, but for the readers to go, oh, I don't understand that. D&D, I don't know that it could have existed without the idea of creating a backstory that rich. The idea, you can create any story within this. It's deep enough you can do that. Role-playing games don't exist without Tolkien.
And Lord of the Rings does have a little bit of a benefit. It's been around for, at least 50 years longer than the Harry Potter series. The only thing kids gave a shit about in the late 90s was Pokemon and video games. You either playing the card games, and it was really shocking to see a bunch of fucking kids walking around with books all of a sudden. I almost want to say in 50 years for Harry Potter, that'll be what's remembered.
It was a cultural kind of touchstone, but I felt like people were reading it in some way that people were like, I gotta go see this fucking Star Wars movie so I know what my kids are talking about. I don't want to watch it, but I gotta know. Are not into fantasy and you want to read one thing that's going to show you what fantasy is, read Lord of the Rings. Because just about everything else can be traced back to it. And if you hate fantasy, you can be done. You read Lord of the Rings and you're done. You don't have to read anything else. You don't have to play Dungeons and Dragons. You don't ever have to watch a movie. You don't have to do anything. Just read Lord of the Rings and you can be done forever. And I don't think you can say that about Harry Potter or any other fantasy series, that you read this and you can say you're done. You can just, I'm done. I read Lord of the Rings. I don't like fantasy.
3 or 4 weeks ago, just finished rereading through all the books. The length just gives you that time to really bond with these characters and learn everything about them without having to read about their whole genealogy and where their family came from. You get to learn specifically where they are coming from.
You one final word. Why is Lord of the Rings a superior book series to Harry Potter?
Tolkien-esque is a word in the Oxford English Dictionary describing a type of literary idea or trope. That's it.
Cody, why is Harry Potter a superior book series to Lord of the Rings?
Just a wonderful coming of age story rather than just the average hero's tale. It's a hero's tale mixed in with a coming of age.
There it is. Which is the more superior book series? Is it Lord of the Rings or is it Harry Potter? Tell us in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time on Young Geek versus Old Geek. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me. Also, like, the context of what you've created, like, yeah, it's a debate, but I'm not going for Corey's throat in this. Like, I've never met him before.
Yeah.
And I would feel terrible if I said something that actually like made him feel bad because I'm a human. But if it was you, I wouldn't give a shit. I'd be like, whatever, it's going to roll off James, and it might be funny if he and I kind of go at each other. But I don't know you well, but I know that you're not going to give a shit.